I'm Clint, and we go over the best art advice I've ever received on drawing and painting faces this episode of Swatches. I've already done a video on the best art advice I've ever received, which is a very general topic. Now we're going to start talking more specific. Face, of course, is the subject here. Now remember, this isn't the best art advice that exists on the subject. I'm just talking about the ones that I've received that really helped give me an aha moment, that challenged my perspective and my understanding, that helped formulate how I handle this subject in my art. Okay, so let's jump over to Photoshop and take a look at what they are. In no particular order, number one, don't outline the features. So if you were to do that, you want to get something like this. Now I did the original illustration for Magic the Gathering, but I've done a version here where the features are heavily outlined. This is fairly common. I see a lot of people making this mistakes, and they go very heavy on the edges of all of the features. But what it does is it breaks up the face. It sort of fragments it into very distinct light and darks, and everything is just kind of chopped up and all together on the fake side. Because if you look at it and you think about it, there is very few actual lines or outlines on anything on the face. Even the eyebrows are just a collection of individual hairs that have a soft edge to them. Number two, features are part of the face. These sort of go hand in hand. And it's a shift of the mentality that there isn't just the face, and then you plop features on it. That's the sort of Mr. Potato Head that you can just plug things on there and now they're part of the face. No, they still look like they're just something that's stuck on the face. And you will either get something like Mr. Potato Head, where the features don't seem to really blend, or you're going to get something like this, where it's almost like stickers. You just get an eye sticker and you stick it on that part of the face. What you have to think of is that this is one unit. Yes, there are individual shapes and features on that face, but as a whole, it is one face. And a lot of that comes down to this sort of idea, where you're thinking about the volume of the face. You're thinking about how the volume of the eye interacts with the eyelid, and the eyelid with the cheeks. And all of these things start blending together. You're trying to find reasons of why they can be a part of each other. This is a soft pastel illustration I did of my cousin's kid. And look at this. I've tried to blend the features in. I've tried to make it all part of a whole, very unified. Also notice the lack of outlining on the features. Number three, white of the eyes. The white of the eyes are generally darker than what you think they are. Let's take a look at reference photo here. This is a stock photo from facestock.com. I'll have a link in the description. She has a lot of really high quality stock photos out on DeviantArt. Feel free to go out there, take a look at some of her stuff, and thank you to her for making this available to the community. As you can see here, none of these are white. The white of the eye is not that close to white most of the time. Now down here you have the specular light from the moisture on the eyelid that's catching the light that makes it really close to white. But that's much brighter than the actual white of the eye. The white of the eye only seems white or lighter, mainly because it's surrounded by a lot of darker things. Let's take a look at an example over here. This is the white of the eye right here. This is the skin tone below the eye, and the skin tone above the eye. Those are almost exactly the same. Like I said, the white of the eye seems lighter. Why? Because it's surrounded by dark, dark, and dark on each side. If you get something that is a medium tone or fairly light and you put a lot of darks around it, it's going to make it look even lighter comparatively. So keep that in mind. Yeah, the white of the eye can look light, but generally it's because it's compared to the dark things around it. If you would go really light with the eyes, take a look back over here on this colored one, and I turn that on, That's what the actual white looks like if you put it in the eye. And of course, that immediately breaks the illusion of realism because that's practically glowing. That's like magic glowing white of the eyes. Number 4, moving right along. Not a big change in the mentality, just something to keep in mind. Don't emphasize the nasal folds. Okay, same illustration from the other point, I know, but don't do that. This is not a set of lines that you really want to emphasize in anything other than a very old character. And you want to suggest it if possible. I mean, that's what I've done here. There's just a little value change. There's a little light being caught on that angle change there. But otherwise, that's something you generally want to downplay, especially in ladies. Now, if you're doing something like a man who is, maybe a barbarian, you're actually trying to grunge him up a little bit, make him look a little weathered, in which case you might bring out that some. But as a rule, don't emphasize the nasal fold. Number 5, skin is not white. Now, these are examples from a previous video where this image was submitted by a viewer asking for paint over critique, and I did one of it over here. There's a full video. You can find a link in the description. But see, if you get the skin too close to white, you see how washed out it becomes? The skin becomes very chalky, especially, we're talking about Caucasian skin in this case. It loses a lot of the life. It doesn't feel like there's any blood, there's any tissue. It just feels like paper. And that's not what you want to go for with that. This is a modified version. Try to bring some of those richer tones back into the skin. Also, if you're working in black and white, that the base value of the white paper is not the base value of the skin. Likely what you need to do is tone down all of that so you still have room to have highlights that make use of the white of the paper on the skin. Number 6, color in skin. Connected to the topic we just talked about, there is a lot of color in skin. I just took a still shot from the series House of the main actor here, Hugh Laurie, and I did some sampling from it. And you can see in this, there's so much color. Now, I chose a slightly more vibrant version of each one, but it is our job as the artist to see something, even if it's like this, that has a moderate amount of color, and understand and see where that color is and the full scope of it. These are all colors that you can use to paint in these areas. And of course, with the pastels, you can't mix colors. You have only the colors that you have with the pastels. And this is a good exercise if you want to learn how to use a variety of colors to make skin tone. Try it with pastels. And what you have to do is start layering a lot of colors together. There's greens and blues down here that have been layered over with violets and soft peach tones. All throughout the skin, small variations of color. Okay, number 7, teeth suggestion. Now this is how you might do teeth. This is a illustration I did for Magic, and I've just come back and I've added really defined teeth. Now that doesn't really fit. It almost feels fake. It looks like it's like plastic or cartoony. So better is probably what I did originally. Now this is a really, really zoomed up version of this image. The whole image is about 10 times bigger than this. But here I'm just suggesting the teeth. And I'm leaving some soft edges. I don't want to get really hard with my edges. And I don't want to overemphasize the shapes. The whole idea here is that you can suggest something without necessarily having to say it. And that was a big mental shift for me. In that, I don't have to draw everything. I only need to draw enough that the viewer understands it, and you can actually start relying on the viewer's understanding and knowledge of the subject to fill in the details. So let's take a look at another example. Here is another example. Did a little mouth on this side, and that the teeth are not very well defined, but you accept it as teeth, even though there is not a line between the teeth. And that's what we're trying to get rid of, the line that actually separates them. Instead, what you do is suggest it by doing notches between the tops of the teeth. And then the mind will fill in the idea that those are individual segments. When you look at an image like this, you're not visually looking at it and seeing every individual thing. You're looking at it and your brain accepts it as teeth, not tooth, 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 tooth. So you want to treat it as a unit rather than a lot of individual parts. That goes back to the whole idea of features being part of the face. You want them to look at the face and see it as a unit, not a bunch of individual parts. Now, I layered that out, if you're just curious. Basic skin tone. I put a shadow back in the inside of the mouth. I put the teeth in as a block. Lower teeth, upper teeth. Treated them as one unit. And then I come back and I cut it out. Add the lips over top of it. Give me the basic, simple lighting there. And then I add the details, which is just the little notches. And of course, a couple of highlights of the lips and stuff. But yeah. Anything more than that, and you're going to start really probably over-defining them. And you can apply that mentality to all your other subjects, where you're trying to get some bit of information and use it to convey the whole without having to say everything. In fact, I did the same thing with the lips. I don't outline the lips here. I try to go very, very soft with the edges of the lips. And I basically use the corners, a little shadow down here, a little highlight up there to establish the outside of the lips. I suggest it with changes of color, temperature, and hue. That's it. Okay, number 8. This one made a big change. If you haven't done it, make sure you do it. Memorize the proportions. It's basically a 2:3 ratio. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3. So it's a 2:3 ratio. And then inside of that, you have the eyes are halfway between the top of the head and the chin. The nose is halfway between those. Then the nose down is divided into thirds. So you have the opening, like the crease in the mouth at 1/3. And then you have the table, the start of the plane coming out for the chin at the 2/3. And the eye is one eye width, and there's eye width between the eye and eye width, of course, over there. The nose is generally about an eye width. Then the mouth goes from the inside of the iris on that side to the inside of the iris on that side. It's not that complicated, but once you memorize that, and all of a sudden you can start drawing faces from imagination without a lot of trouble. And how we differ from that standard proportion is what makes every individual look like who they are. So that really helped me. And, as a kid, I didn't realize that there was this set of proportions that basically everything follows these. And once I learned it, it's like, man, now I can just go out and draw people all day, and I'm not constantly having to look at a reference image. Next one, skin is not opaque. This is another one of those holdovers that you have to move beyond just thinking that skin is a certain flat tone, and that the skin also is not, it's not opaque. It's not just like a piece of wood, whereas light doesn't really go through it. Skin is made of mostly water. Most of the body is mostly water. And it is translucent. Light can come into it, and it goes inside and it bounces around. They call that subsurface scattering. It's going under the surface, and the light is scattering right there. These are some examples of it through different pieces of artwork I've done. The light is coming in, and it's going through the finger. And you get a bit of warm on the other side of the finger where the light is going through. hold your hand up to a flashlight. You can see the light going through your finger, kind of like a little x-ray. Same thing over here with the ear. The light comes in and it backlights part of the skin, and it will cause that to glow really bright red and kind of a violet tone. The same thing happens when the light comes in at an angle and it cuts through the skin over towards the shadow side. That's why you get the brightest, most vibrant tones of the skin right along that edge. You can see it even more so here. The light comes through the nostril, and you actually get a lot of light on the inside and on the underside of that nostril, not because the light is going around to reach it, because it's actually penetrating through the skin and warming it up. And the last one is a bit of advice that my old portrait art teacher gave me when I was a teenager, and that is about the volume of drawing faces. He told me, if you're trying to draw somebody and get their likeness, you're going to get it about 1 out of 10 times for the first 100 portraits that you do. And then you do another 100 portraits and you're going to get their likeness 2 out of 10 times. And then for every 100 portraits that you do, you're going to increase it by another one. You do 1,000 portraits and you will get their likeness 9 out of 10 times. You'll never get 10 out of 10, every time. But if you do 1,000 portraits, you'll be able to capture somebody's likeness 9 out of 10 times. And that's just the numbers game. It's part of it. There is a road that you have to go down, and it takes a certain amount of time. And if you want that goal of being able to draw somebody and it looks like them almost every time, then you need to log in about 1,000 portraits. It just was a nice piece of advice to me because it was real. It's just, this is what it takes in order to get there. I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thank you very much for watching this video. What is the best art advice that you've ever received on drawing faces or painting faces? Leave it in the comments below. I'm interested to hear. And then what is the next topic you would like me to cover on the Best Art Advice series? Also, let me know below. Of course, if you're not familiar with our Facebook group, it's very active, very encouraging, a lot of stuff going on out there. Go to swatches.group. It'll link you to the group over on Facebook. Free to join. Everybody's welcome to join out there. Post your stuff, get some feedback, stay up to date on the challenges and other things going on with Swatches. Until you see you next time, keep drawing. But now let's start talking specifically the face on this issue.